We're here at the Niagara Falls View Casino International Marathon with none other than Kathrine Switzer, who many of us consider the mother of women's running. Kathrine, you have done so many things. The one you're probably most famous for is running the Boston in 1967 before Title IX. Tell us in a couple words about the encounter and how you see that as the beginning of changing running for women.
You know, that was one of the watershed moments in women's sports, and it's interesting. It wasn't because really of me running as much as it was because it happened in front of the press truck, and the pictures of the incident were flashed around the world. The other important part of the event was that it was such a frightening and a humiliating moment at the time when the official tackled me and tried to throw me out of the race. Up to that point, I'd felt perfectly welcome and really supported and motivated by all these guys. But it really completely radicalized my thinking about why other women weren't in that race. You know, Roberta Gibb had run the year before, I had run, but why weren't there hundreds of other women? And I realized it's because they didn't have opportunities. And so I decided from that race, I really wanted to create the opportunities. Running had given me so much, made me feel so great. I really wanted to create the event. I also wanted to be a better athlete, and I'm really proud of the fact that I did improve tremendously and eventually won the New York City Marathon. And that was inspirational to me because I felt if I could do that on limited talent, which I have limited talent, many other women could do it.
Well, you know, it's pretty exciting. I noticed that the history of this race, that the very first year only 10 women ran. Now, more than 50% of the field is women. How does that make you feel?
Well, I think what's astonishing is that women have moved from an era of exclusion and suspectness to the area of exclusivity, where many races are even starting the women in front of the men. And this is because they're highlighting their achievements and watching their strategy, but also, you know, women are really the economic drivers of the sport right now. Over 50% of almost all our fields in running are women. Even in marathons are coming up to about 50%. And they are huge purchasers of products and great travelers. So the economics of the sport have a lot to thank women for.
Well, you know, when you were talking about your Boston race and when you got tackled by Jock Semple at the time, I got choked up all over again. And I got choked up again watching the Joan Benoit Samuelson cross the finish line in the first women's marathon in 1984 in Los Angeles. I still get choked up. And you were the driver behind the movement to get the women to run the marathon in the Olympics. How did it feel to watch Joni cross the line and the other people like Greta Waitz and Ingrid Christensen and Rosa Mata? Tell us about that.
Oh God, what an era that was. I mean, because we were striving to prove ourselves very hard, and the times are really coming down, not only because finally we had the opportunity and the freedom to run, but we really needed to prove ourselves. And we were fascinated with the constant improvement. It was mesmerizing, really, and I was thinking that Joan Benoit was going to be breaking 2:20 at any minute. You know, it was amazing how long and how good those records were. But how did it feel? Well, it felt wonderful and relief in terms of the fact that after all these years, finally we were official. And I was thinking of all the women around the world who were going to be impacted by watching that on television because they didn't have the sports opportunity. And through television, 2.2 billion people watched that finish and got teared up and suddenly realized, hey, if she could do that, I wonder if I can do that. You know, I can do much more with my life. So socially, it was very important. The moment itself was a little fraught for me because I was doing my first big television broadcast for ABC. And I was getting all these shouting people in my ear, and I was trying not to be emotional because, you know, the basic law for me is if that situation, you're a journalist and you got to be straight. You can't be emotional. But boy, I was churning, I got to tell you.
It's hard not to be emotional watching that one.
Right, absolutely.
And one last thing, I didn't realize the extent to which you've been banned from racing after that Boston incident, but you came here to Canada to race.
Isn't that amazing? You know, after the Boston incident, a lot of people don't know this, I was expelled from the Amateur Athletic Union for a whole bunch of rules, including running without a chaperone, okay?
Running without a chaperone?
Yes, amazing. So, but as soon as that happened, I got invitations to run in Canada, and I came up here, and everybody just loved me, and I ran in all your races, and I won prizes, and I pinned on numbers, and I was official up here. And so I said, okay, Canada, I love you, and I'll love you forever.
How long did it take before you were able to race again in the U.S.?
About 2 years. You know, I sulked for a year and thumbed my nose at the Federation, and then I applied for reinstatement, and then they felt kind of embarrassed too and said, oh, gee, well, we're sorry, and let me in.
Well, thank you for all of your pioneering efforts, and thank you for talking to us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all you're doing with communicating this wonderful sport to so many people.